Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so today we're really digging into something quite broad, actually. It's this conversation that jumped around quite a bit,
hmm
covering things like, saying sorry too much, how the media is totally changing shape.
Right. And also, like, the science behind when you work out and how that affects your sleep.
Exactly. And then there was stuff on relationships, everyday affection, and even building community in new ways. It was quite the mix.
It really was. We've basically gone through this lively morning show discussion, pulled out the key bits from all the different guests and segments.
Yeah, think of it as us doing the heavy lifting for you.
Right. So you get the core insights without having to sit through hours of it.
And the idea, really, the mission for you listening, is that you walk away with something useful, maybe something you can apply.
Yeah, thinking about your own habits, maybe how you deal with all the news and info out there.
Or even just small things for your well-being, your relationships, why connection matters so much right now.
Okay, so where should we start? That apologizing thing.
Let's do it, saying sorry. It kicked off looking at this tendency, maybe especially Canadian, they mentioned, to just apologize constantly.
Yeah, even for things you absolutely did not do, like bumping into furniture or something.
Right. It's almost automatic. And the point was, maybe you don't have to. Like, give yourself permission to just stop the reflexive sorry.
Because it can actually have a bit of a negative effect, can it? Always justifying yourself.
Totally. Like starting emails with just checking in or just wanted to ask, that little word just.
Yeah. It kind of minimizes what you're saying, doesn't it?
It really does. And there was this story, AJ shared it, I think, about being told off basically for saying, oh, it's just me.
And the response was, no, it's AJ.
Exactly. And that simple correction, it really stuck with them. It highlighted how that word just can kind of, subtly undermine your own value.
It's a small word, but it packs a punch in terms of self-perception, like you're asking for permission to take up space.
So it boils down to being a bit more aware. Is this a real apology for something I did wrong?
Or is it just like a verbal tick, filling space?
Right. And when you cut back on the unnecessary ones, your communication gets clearer, more direct.
Which leads to more authenticity, more respect, probably. People know when you do apologize, you actually mean it.
Exactly. It gives your words more weight. Okay, so from apologies to physiology, workouts, and sleep.
Yeah, this was interesting. The science seems to suggest that finishing a workout, especially an intense one, too close to bedtime, like within 4 hours, can mess up your sleep.
And the reason is your resting heart rate stays elevated.
That's the idea. Your body just hasn't fully wound down.
Plus, there's a whole stimulant factor. Lots of people use pre-workouts for evening sessions.
Oh, definitely. And those often have caffeine or other stuff designed to amp you up. So you've got the physical exertion and the chemical boost working against sleep.
It's like a double whammy. Not exactly relaxing.
Not ideal. And they contrasted that with morning workouts.
Right, saying those can actually help your metabolism for the whole day. Boost energy, focus, maybe even burn more fat.
Yeah, gets things going earlier. There was also a point about high-intensity stuff, specifically cutting into REM sleep.
Ah, the dream sleep. That's important for, like, memory and processing things, isn't it?
Crucial stuff. So disrupting that regularly isn't great.
And they had that anecdote from a serious lifter, right? Saying they slept poorly after really hard training no matter when they did it.
Yeah, exactly. Their system was just too fired up. It shows it can be quite individual, too.
So the practical takeaway seems to be aim for more than 4 hours between intense exercise and sleep.
Or maybe switch to something lighter in the evening if you have to work out late, like a body weight circuit or some stretching.
But they also made the point that, for a lot of people, a standard gym workout might not actually be intense enough to cause major sleep problems on its own.
True. It might be more about the pre-workout drinks or that late coffee being the real culprits.
So first step, if you're struggling with sleep and you work out evenings, maybe ditch the stimulants.
Yeah, see if that makes a difference. Your workout might feel different, but better sleep is probably worth it.
Definitely. Okay, switching gears completely now. The media. Big topic.
Huge. And this was a really interesting economic perspective on it, how the internet basically blew up the old model.
It boiled down to the cost of entry, right?
Yeah.
Old media needed printing presses, broadcast towers, huge investments.
Exactly. Super expensive infrastructure. The internet, pretty much anyone can publish or broadcast now, relatively speaking.
And that just shattered what was the term? The media oligopoly. Yeah. The few big players controlling everything.
Right, which completely changed the economics of news, TV, radio, everything.
And led to the rise of, people like the host of the show we're discussing. Individual creators building massive platforms.
From their own spaces, yeah. Reaching global audiences, it's a different world.
But with that comes challenges too, like figuring out who to trust, hidden agendas, lack of transparency sometimes.
That's a big one. And the idea floated was maybe experts, CEOs, people with deep knowledge should become more like media contributors themselves.
But being upfront about their perspective, building trust that way.
Yeah.
Through transparency.
Yeah, which kind of clashes with old school journalism ethics of supposed neutrality, doesn't it?
It does. It feels like there's this tension, the old media structures trying to figure out how to work with these new creators and vice versa.
Nobody's quite cracked it yet, maybe.
And then, of course, AI comes into the picture.
Always. The question being, if AI can churn out content, what's the value of a human expert anymore?
And the answer seemed to land on authenticity, transparency, the human element.
Because AI can generate text, sure, but it doesn't have lived experience. It doesn't have intuition or, an agenda it can actually reveal.
Good point. You can't replicate that gut feeling or the knowledge that isn't written down somewhere.
That unpublished wisdom, yeah.
So looking ahead, one prediction was fascinating. Super personalized news feeds, curated by your own AI agent.
Tailored just for you. But, and this is key alongside that, maybe systems to actually check how credible the sources are.
We need that.
I'd say.
To combat the sort of digital telephone game where misinformation just spreads and mutates.
Definitely. So a future that's potentially more personalized, but hopefully maybe more verifiable too.
We'll see. Okay, let's zoom back in from the big picture of media to something much more personal. Relationships and affection.
Ah, yes. This was lovely. The core idea was that passion, that long-term connection, it's not really sustained by the big, dramatic gestures.
It is the small stuff.
It's the small, consistent, everyday things, a hand squeeze, a touch on the shoulder, just those little moments of physical connection.
And those actually build emotional safety. That makes sense.
It really does. They mentioned some research looking at different patterns, like couples with very little physical touch had the lowest satisfaction.
Okay.
Those focused just on affection did moderately well. But the ones with lots of varied, regular touch, comprehensive affection, they called it, were the happiest.
Comprehensive affection. I like that. It sounds intentional.
And they even gave a nod to, spontaneous public displays of affection. Not over the top, but just those little moments out in the world.
Keeping things playful.
Yeah. And the advice was simple. Try to bring that vacation mode affection into your normal life.
You mean how you might be more casually touchy when you're relaxed in a way?
Exactly that. Don't just save it for holidays, weave it into the everyday.
And they hinted it could even maybe improve your sex life.
Well, yeah. It stands to reason, doesn't it? If you feel more consistently connected and safe through those small touches, it builds intimacy, which can definitely foster desire.
It's all connected. Emotional safety, physical touch, deeper intimacy.
Precisely. Those small gestures lay the groundwork.
Okay, final big area. This whole idea of redefining life, finding purpose, and community.
Right. This started with looking at the rise of non-alcoholic social spaces. Why is that happening? Well, several reasons came up. Definitely increased health consciousness, but also this idea of a kind of mass awakening, people wanting something different.
And there was a pretty strong view expressed about alcohol itself, calling it poison that lowers frequency.
Yeah, quite a spiritual or energetic perspective there. The focus was more on creating these safe spaces.
Places for connection, healing.
Yeah.
Without alcohol as the default social lubricant.
And an interesting side note was how people frequenting these non-alcoholic bars sometimes just lose their taste for alcohol naturally.
Without even trying necessarily. Just the environment shifts their preference.
Apparently so,
Okay.
which speaks volumes about the power of community and environment.
And that need for community came up again and again, fighting that feeling of isolation.
Definitely. Then there was this concept, the inner alchemist.
Which means seeing challenges not as things happening to you.
But for you, opportunities for growth, transformation, changing your perspective on hardship.
That links to that feeling of guilt, doesn't it? Like even when you achieve things, sometimes you feel guilty wanting more.
Yeah, and the advice was to dig into that. Where does that guilt come from? What does fulfillment really mean to you personally?
It's about rewriting your internal story, visualizing your best self, living in line with your truth.
And remembering you're not stuck being who you were 5 minutes ago. You can always choose differently. Like play another character in your own life.
I like that. It sounds freeing. It pushes back against that lack mindset too, focusing on scarcity.
Instead, focus on what you desire. the power of intention.
And building community wasn't just about, feeling good. It was framed as a motivation beyond just making money.
A deeper drive for connection,
Right.
which led into energy seeking.
Okay, what was that about? Connecting with nature.
Yeah, and other people on an energetic level, they even talked about trees connecting to different worlds or states of consciousness.
Wow, okay. Getting a bit more metaphysical there, like moving into 5D consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Higher awareness, interconnectedness, that kind of thing.
But bringing it back down to earth, they acknowledge the fear. Redefining your life is scary. Stepping into the unknown.
Absolutely. And the need for self-belief when you take those leaps. You have to trust yourself.
Because fear is often the root of what holds us back, right? Fear of failure, fear of judgment.
It really is. Fear seemed to be the big villain in this part of the discussion,
Yeah.
the main obstacle.
And they talked about success and happiness, not always the same thing, and often requiring sacrifice, but possible to have both if you define success on your own terms.
Right, not just external validation. And abundance, like financial abundance, was seen as a potential byproduct.
A result of following your mission with good intentions.
That was the idea. Not the goal itself, but something that might follow naturally.
So wrapping it all up, the biggest struggle people face when trying to change their lives.
Overwhelmingly, it seemed to be that fear. Fear of the unknown and fear of what other people will think. Judgment.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's just quickly recap the main takeaways in this whole deep dive.
All right. We looked at maybe apologizing less to build confidence, thinking about workout timing for better sleep.
Understanding the changing media world, bringing more small affections into relationships.
Right. And then that bigger journey of redefining life, facing fears, and finding or building community.
Covered a lot of ground.
It really did. Personal habits, well-being, connection, navigating the modern world.
So the final thought for you, listening, maybe pick one thing. Is there one area where you apologize too much? Just one.
Or maybe one tiny act of affection, a hand squeeze, a quick hug you could intentionally do today. Just think about what shift that one small change might spark. For you, and maybe for someone else too.